Hey, welcome to EPN. My name is Victor Lucas, and we bring you the latest in everything cool every single day, thanks to our friendly neighborhood pals at the VFS School of Game Design. Thank you, Vancouver Film School. Today's rundown is dedicated to our friend Jordan Cunningham, who never fails to show his support to what we're doing here at EPN. Thank you so much, Jordan. This rundown is all yours. Just when you thought you had kicked your Hearthstone addiction, Blizzard pulls you back in. They've announced the next big expansion for their digital card game. It's called Knights of the Frozen Throne, and like previous expansions, will give players 135 new cards. These ones based around the chilly realm of Northrend from the Warcraft universe. Familiar creatures will appear, including most notably the powerful Lich King. The expansion also introduces a new gameplay mechanic through a new card type called the Hero card, which will allow players to transform their existing hero characters and alter their powers during battle. Back in May, Blizzard boasted that Hearthstone had more than 70 million registered players, making it their most popular game, with more active players than Diablo, StarCraft, Warcraft, and even Overwatch. That means they're going to keep updating it for a very, very long time. Knights of the Frozen Throne arrives next month. Nintendo isn't slowing down the pace of new DLC for their games. The first post-launch fighter for their Switch-exclusive Brawler Arms arrives next week. Known as Max Brass, he's already appeared in the game as a mini-boss, but now players will actually be able to fight as him, using his formidable size and strength to their advantage. As his health bar drops, his fists actually become more powerful, which should add an interesting twist now that you'll actually be able to play as him. This brings the total number of playable characters up to 11, and best of all, Max Brass will be free for anyone who already owns the game. He arrives next week, and Nintendo plans to release more free fighters as well as new stages and modes in the coming months. In other DLC news from Nintendo, the Legend of Zelda producer Eiji Aonuma has revealed a few new pieces of info about the next big Breath of the Wild expansion, The Champion's Ballad. Aonuma revealed that Link will be the sole playable character, putting an end to speculation that the DLC would allow players to take control of the 4 titular champions or Zelda herself. That would have been an interesting new direction for the series, but there is something else that the DLC is doing that's never been done before. Aonuma says that the DLC will take place after the events of the main game, which means for the first time you'll be able to explore Hyrule after you've defeated Ganon. Like in previous Zelda games, once you've beaten Breath of the Wild, loading your save file takes you back to the moment just before you enter Ganon's castle, so you've never been able to see what the world looks like after you've vanquished his evil and saved the day. This could have big implications for how the world and its characters behave, so we're looking forward to exploring it all over again when the DLC arrives. The Champion's Ballad drops this holiday season. Nintendo has been making a bigger effort to release DLC expansions like this for more and more of their games, so expect to see similar content for future titles. Netflix is already loading up another Castlevania. With their new animated series based on the classic video game just hitting the streaming service today, Netflix has officially renewed the show for a second season. Few details are known at this point, but we do know that it will once again be made by animation house Frederator Studios, which also makes Adventure Time. The first season of Castlevania isn't very long. It consists of just 4 episodes that clock in at about 25 minutes each, which means binge watching the entire thing in one sitting won't make you feel as lazy, fat, and pathetic as it usually does. The second season will be a bit longer though, with Netflix increasing their order from 4 episodes to 8. Like the games, the show focuses on the vampire-slaying Belmont family and their long battle against the deadliest vampire of them all, Dracula, and the story is written by comic book legend Warren Ellis. There's no word yet on when the second season will arrive. You're going to have to wait a little while longer to slay your friends in the final version of PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds. The online Battle Royale game is going to spend a little longer in Steam Early Access than originally thought. It was set to launch a full, finished, and final version 6 months after its initial Early Access launch, which would have put it out in September or October, but it turns out that the developers need more time. Writing on the game's official Steam page, director Brendan PlayerUnknown Green says that they've come to realize that restricting the launch window to a specific time frame would hinder them from delivering the fully realized game that they want to make. They've pushed back the launch window in order to give themselves more time to make the game as good as it can be, complete with all the polish and content that fans are expecting. The good news is that they're still planning to release the final version before the end of the year, and they'll also continue to release incremental content updates in the lead up to the final version. It's not uncommon for early access games to push back their final versions as the developers incorporate the feedback they've received from players, and given that Battlegrounds is already very popular, they've got a lot of feedback to work with. They're also working on an Xbox One version, which is also slated to arrive before the end of the year. Microsoft says it will launch on the Xbox One as part of the console's game preview program, which means it could arrive before the game is out of early access on the PC. Speaking of early access, players everywhere will soon be able to jump into Destiny 2. Bungie has revealed the content that players will get to try out in the game's upcoming beta test. You'll be able to play through the game's opening story mission, which was first shown off last month and sees a devastating attack on your home base, the Tower. The beta also includes 1 strike and 2 PvP modes, so players will get a blend of single-player, co-op, and competitive multiplayer. The new matchmaking feature is also included in the beta, along with the new character subclasses, but something that isn't included is character progression, so you won't be able to import your character from the first game until the final version of Destiny 2 arrives. I got a chance to play most of the beta content at the big Destiny 2 unveiling event before E3, and I can't wait to jump back in. The beta kicks off on July 18th for those who pre-ordered the game and July 21st for everyone else. The final version of the game will hit Earth on September 6th. Destiny and other science fiction tales like to show people living on Mars, but in real life, that might not be possible. Some new discoveries have been made about the red planet, and they don't bode well for the possibility of life ever taking hold there. Scientists at the University of Edinburgh, using the latest data obtained from the Martian surface by NASA's Curiosity rover, have determined that the soil on Mars is much more toxic than originally thought. It's filled with harmful chemicals called bactericides, which are potent enough to kill any bacteria in the soil, essentially making the planet sterile and preventing the evolution of life as we know it. So how did those harmful bactericides get there? It turns out that they're the result of ultraviolet radiation from the sun hitting salty acids in the soil. We've known for decades that the Martian surface is covered with salty acids called perchlorates, which aren't necessarily a bad thing and actually create the liquid water flows that were discovered there a few years ago. The problem is that, as we now know, the ultraviolet radiation from the sun is intense and hot enough on Mars to cook those salty perchlorates and turn them into the harmful bactericides. This means that areas on Mars with liquid water would actually be worse for the evolution of life than areas that are dry. It also means that if humans are ever going to live there, it will take a lot more work to grow food than what we've seen in science fiction tales. Sorry, Matt Damon.
A planet where nothing grows.
These new findings just go to show how dangerous UV rays and intense heat can really be, so if there's a lesson to be learned, it's that planets become uninhabitable when they get too hot. The best video games are ones that make you think about real-world events and problems. Take a look at the new game called Path Out. It's a top-down RPG based around the ongoing Syrian war and refugee crisis, with players taking the role of a young Syrian artist struggling to escape his home and find safety in the West. The game was actually created by Syrian refugee Abdullah Karam, who escaped the civil war in 2014, and he made it in partnership with Vienna-based graphic artist Brian Main and indie game development studio Kaza Creations. They hope that the game will give players new insight into the real-life Syrian crisis. A free demo is available now on the Kaza Creations website. Before we go, we want to extend our condolences to Stan Lee and his family over the passing of his beautiful wife, Joan. That is a true love story right there. We wish you all the best, Stan. That's it for the rundown today, guys. We'll be back again on Monday with a brand new one for you. If you want to learn more about game design, visit our pals at VFS.edu. Have yourselves a great weekend. We'll see you on Monday.